a book going the wrong way. It was started off as a directional thing. It then obviously ended up in Argentina rather than Australia. But it's also, when I started writing the book and reflecting on my life since then, I realized that I've actually gone the wrong way in a number of occasions and various stages in my life. I've gone a different way that most people would go, and it has ended up with a more difficult lifestyle. I've made mistakes, I've made things have gone wrong, things going right. But I've had a lot of challenges and made a lot of good experiences and good memories from doing it my own way. As I say, right. Stubborn or stupid comes to mind again, but
Today, we're speaking with Chris Donaldson. He is the author of Going the Wrong Way. Chris, could you please introduce yourself? Let people know just a little bit about you, please.
Hi, my name is Chris Donaldson. I'm from Belfast, Ireland. I've written a book called Going the Wrong Way, as it says. It's about a journey I made when I was 21, which, as you can see, was quite a while ago. It was 40 odd years ago. It was a journey I made around the world on a motorcycle. I tried to ride from Belfast to Australia in 1979, and I told him I decided to take over the American embassy in Tehran at the same time and stop me going east. So instead of going to Australia, I ended up in Argentina, hence the name of the book. It's very much a coming of age story of was 21 years old, learning about life in general. Being brought up in Belfast during the 70s, which was a pretty tough place to grow up. With bombs going off, people getting shot. My father's business got blown up several times. Luckily, he didn't have any family that was killed or injured, but a lot of friends were. But it was a good place to leave in the 70s, so I wanted to get to Australia and see a bit of the world. But I never actually moved to Australia. As I said, it took me 40 odd years to ride the bike there. The story sort of comes together because, as I say, I was 21 years old and started my working life. And then when I wrote the book 3 years ago, one of my friends suggested that I take a bike to try, and I said I never actually got to Australia, so why not give it another go? So I was sort of keen to test myself and needed a new challenge. So I took the same bike that I still had the same Moto Guzzi Le Mans, 45 years old. So I set off a year and a half ago and rode to Australia in stages just after COVID, in fact, through COVID. So it's ironically, it's a sort of not a coming of age, coming of old age story in as much as I'm now sort of 65, it's sort of coming to the end of my working life. So it's giving me time to reflect on sort of winding down rather than winding things up.
Yeah. Interesting. It's a fascinating thing when we discover our passion. And when this story came across the desk, I was super excited because I'm a motor enthusiast and I love motorcycles. My wife, she's terrified of me getting on them anymore because I have displayed ignorance at times on them. But that's part of growing up, isn't it?
Well, you were very young then.
Yeah, oh yeah, of course. From 17 to, at least 30, well, I was kind of really I don't care. And I like the gas throttle
Yeah,
on those things.
I've got
And
the t-shirt for that.
she witnessed a few times where I almost lost my life, so she has concerns about them. But, as we age, we slow down that mentality a little bit. And
Yeah.
cruising is a lot different than, you know, just going for it.
Yeah.
What
No,
got you into motorcycling?
it's hard to know really. I think just I was always into bicycling, and I think if you have a bicycle, the thought of being able to go up a hill without pedaling is just sheer ecstasy, when you're 15 or
Yeah.
16 years old. Um, so I got a BSA Bantam 175 and built my way up to the Moto Guzzi. Moto Guzzi is a sports bike. It's not the sort of bike you take around the world, but of course I was in love with my motorbike, the R-Wing. Thought it was the best bike in the world, and that would do me fine. And it would have done very well. In fact, it did very well going to Australia in the last couple of years. But as it happened, I ended up going around the Middle East through Syria and Jordan, and then down through Egypt, down across the Sahara Desert, which is, I don't know if you know what a Moto Guzzi Le Mans is like, but it's not the sort of bike you take across the Sahara Desert on a first choice basis. Made it down to South Africa in the middle of apartheid. Managed to get a job in the sailing boat, coming back up to Europe and get the bike shipped to the States, cruise around the States, and then down to South America. So it was quite a adventurous year and a half. And I did start writing a book after I came back, but then I sort of was 22. Somebody else wrote a book about a similar journey, and he was a journalist and an author. And I thought, well, I can't do anything like that, so I just gave up. And then 3 years later, 4 years ago, I decided to start getting my papers out again and started writing. And really, the book's now a bestseller on Amazon. It's got over 1,000 5-star reviews. And if I can do that, the moral of that story is anybody can write a book if I can, because just because you weren't very good at English at school doesn't mean you're not a good storyteller or a good author.
That's right. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So, you know, a Motor Guzzi Le Mans, that's a cherry pick of a bike for a lot of people. Uh, why did you choose the Le Mans for this trip? And more importantly, I haven't discovered from researching you, how did you obtain that precious bike?
Well, I bought it when I was about 19 or 20. I was running around Belfast. It was the hottest bike in the street. And I thought it was the coolest dude in town. I did try and sell it to get buy a BMW, which is most people's choice for a touring bike. But nobody gave me enough money for it. So being a stubborn 21-year-old, I decided, well, I'm just going to put panniers and top box and a touring screen on it, and away it went. So a bit of stupidity and stubbornness or stupidity, pick your pick, bit of both probably.
Yeah, and you've still got the same bike for all these years.
Yeah, I brought the bike back from South America in 1981 and I've restored it, and it's just it's been a bit of a souvenir of a trip. I've parked in the garage for long periods of time. I've been into doing other things than motorbikes, but it's always been there. Motorbikes are good because you can put them in the back of the garage and forget about them, whereas an old car or a boat or something takes up lots of space, but a bike doesn't take up much space. You can ignore it and come back onto it again years later. So I lived for the last sort of 8 years before that, since 2011, I was living in Dubai. So the bike was just sitting in Belfast, not being used. But that's another story. But yeah, no, it's been interesting. People talk about coming of age, and then there's obviously the midlife crisis that we're all supposed to get when they're sort of mid-40s. But I've sort of reached the age of 65 now and retirement age. There's actually no sort of coin of phrase for this particular age, whereas actually it's probably one of the most important ages because people are giving up their jobs, been working 40 hours a week for 40 years. And it's quite a monumental thing to give up your work, give up your career, give up
Yeah.
your personal, some people's life, whole personal life, or not personal, but their whole life. So the public is tied in with their business and their working life. So very often guys walk out the door on Friday afternoon and that's them finished and they've nothing to do but play golf a couple of times a week and dig in the garden. So I suppose I
Yeah.
wanted to sort of challenge myself and see if I could still do what I did when I was 21.
Yeah, I often think about that. I'm getting ready to turn 58 and journeying back in my mind all of those exciting journeys. They really gave me things to reflect on. I'm not embarrassed or ashamed of any of it because it's built me to who I am. Even though I think a lot of people would think a lot of it is stupid and uh, adolescent, but that's what really builds character is getting to know who you are and how you can push yourself.
Well, calling the book Going the Wrong Way was started off as a directional thing. It then obviously ended up in Argentina rather than Australia. But it's also, when I started writing the book and reflecting on my life since then, I realized that I've actually gone the wrong way in a number of occasions and various stages in my life. I've
Yeah,
gone a different way that most people would go, and it has ended up with a more difficult lifestyle. I've made mistakes, I've made things have gone wrong, things going right. But I've had a lot of challenges and made a lot of good experiences and good memories from doing it my own way. As I
that's
say,
right.
stubborn or stupid comes to mind again, but it's been good fun.
Yeah, I've heard you speak on a few podcasts, and you talk about being self-sufficient and being able to overcome these challenges. It's really part of being alive. Today it's getting pretty bad where people are afraid to go outside and they're stuck on these machines. It's pretty new to me. And I grew up when you go out until the sun goes down and you don't come home until then. Uh, it's a different world. How do you see the difference and how do you handle the difference?
Well, I think the world has gone a bit haywire on health and safety. Certainly, whereas it has its good points, road traffic accidents, people having accidents at work, and all this sort of thing. But I think we have gone to the stage that everything is risk assessed, and people are. Whereas I think when we were growing up, we did things for the fun of it, for the risk, and very
Yep.
often it didn't end well, but we got a buzz out of it. Whereas kids, a lot of kids these days, they seem to be more interested in spending time on their mobile phone rather than actually go out doing stuff. Um, they're they'd rather watch it rather than do it. Albeit the guy watching it might be a Red Bull cyclist who's doing somersaults or something like that, but that's all good and well, but it's not as much fun as flying down a hill on your bicycle yourself and trying to stay upright. But I'm starting to sound like my dad now, probably saying it's not like it was in our day. It's always a danger.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Uh,
For sure. What I find interesting is you wrote a book from your adventure and you took notes and you reflected back on the notes to write the book. Was journaling a thing that you did throughout your life, or did you specifically want to take notes to write a book about this journey? Because when your one sheet came across, there's a deal about rumors that your old teacher might be stirring in his grave because of you writing a book. So I'm interested, has writing been a passion or an interest for all of your life?
Not really, to be honest. I've always been interested in creating and making things, and been in business for 40 odd years. Owned a number of businesses in different countries around the world as well. It's always been quite creative, but writing has never really been a passion as such. So I think I never really fitted in with the school academia when I was in my teens. In the 60s and 70s, you had to fit in with what was being taught and how it was being taught, and that's what you did. Much more probably than now. And if you didn't fit in, like I didn't fit in, you were more or less cast asunder. When the smart kids who did fit in got the prizes and got the first places in the English language, whatever. But writing a book is it's telling a story. It's not, you don't have to worry about your punctuation anymore because you've got spell checker to do that sort of thing, and you've got so when I started writing, then it was, when I read my notes, they're a mess. I think I'm a bit dyslexic probably, amongst other things. But it's certainly been easier from the computer makes it easier in a lot of ways. You can copy and paste, you can delete, and go over things again and again, much easier than you could have done. But I think everybody has an individual story, and I think I've tried to write the book as much as telling a story rather than it's not Shakespeare, it's not a work of art, but it's a bloody good story, I think.
Yeah, interesting. So traveling the world and going all of these places, communication is very important. Meeting all of these different people in different areas geographically in our world, what was that like, and what was the communication like, and how easy was it to go from culture to culture?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was interesting taking the same bike on the journey I intended to take over the last couple of years. What I did was we drove for 2 weeks, left the bike, and then came back to a family, I've got work commitments, so I couldn't disappear out for a year and a half like I did when I was 21. So we rode for 2 weeks, parked the bike up, flew home, came out again 2-3 months later and did another leg. So that's why it took me a year and a half to get to Australia, over about 6 legs. But one of the biggest differences between now and sort of 40 years ago is communication, and the internet has sort of shrunk the world so much. It is incredible. I could stop the bike in Pakistan or India or Iran and phone home and say where I am and what I'm doing. And in fact, my wife could track me on the phone to see where I was. Whereas 40 years ago, I think I phoned home about once every 3 months when I was going down Africa because it was so expensive. I remember going into Cairo, I had to book a telephone call, cost about £5, which is probably about $50 now, to make a 5-minute telephone call home. And it was a bad line. It was just a waste of time. So my parents must have been pulling their hair out of it. As you say, people nowadays, you can't go anywhere without your mobile phone, without your kids. You don't know, you need to know where everybody is all the time. Whereas I was
That's
with
right.
sort of darkest Africa, nobody knew where it was for months on end. So probably in a way it gave the trip a certain mystique, because there's certainly that danger element and a mysterious element it isn't there now when you do a journey, because if you want to know what's around the corner, what's the next country like, what's the next city, you just Google it, and all the information's at your fingertips.
Yeah.
You send them an email, book your hotel, tell them what time you're coming at, all the rest of it. Whereas I was really flying by the seat of my pants, literally, because especially because wasn't going to the direction I had already planned. I had guidebooks for going to India, but none for Africa. So
Yeah.
at one stage, I actually drove up to the edge of my map, the South Sudan, because I didn't know what the next country was. Well, I knew what the country was, but what the roads were going to be like. So swap maps with somebody coming north. So it was much more basic. Kind of hard to imagine these days.
So what about language barriers? Speaking with people?
Well, I went down across the Mexican border. I think the only thing I knew what to say was Dos Cerveza, and that was about it. But by the time I got to Argentina, fair inkling of Spanish. Africa was not too bad, but Africa is mainly a lot of old British colonies there, and English is quite widely spoken.
Interesting. So there's really not that much of a language barrier anymore throughout the world.
Well, no, certainly, because again, Google Translate. You just say it into your phone and it tells you what I said. You're standing in Pakistan, asking directions. You take your phone out, and the guide says something in Urdu, and there it is in your screen. It's quite remarkable.
Yeah. So how was it different from back then when you went through the different countries? Was there a barrier there, and how did you communicate with people at that time without Google?
Well, you got lost a lot more.
Yeah.
I think in those days you built up a sort of sense of direction in your head. You had a bit of an idea whether it was from where you set off from, or where the sun is, or what time it was. I don't know how you get a sense of direction. But I think you sort of had an idea which way you should go. Whereas nowadays, because everything's on Google Maps, or wherever you drive to, people just turn on Google Maps. You don't even look at where you're driving through. Sometimes you get somewhere and you don't know what you passed. If you tried to find your way back again, you couldn't, because you didn't see the road marks, the sort of things you've been past. So it'd be interesting to see how young guys who have who use maps, Google Maps all the time, how they would get on without it, how they could cross a city like London or Seattle or wherever without Google Maps.
Yeah, I often wonder that. With them talking about taking away print books and print media like maps and things like that, and just going electronic, that kind of scares the heck out of me, because I like to fold out a map and trace my route on a physical piece of paper and know that I have it in my backpack.
Well, I remember 20, 30 years ago when computers came out, the story was that they'd be putting paper out of business. Nobody will use paper anymore. I think as anybody has a computer knows, you use twice as much paper as you ever used before. People still like to see things in print,
That's right. Yeah. Nothing like a pen and paper.
Yeah, I mean, people said that books would be obsolete in no time because everybody used Kindle and online. But book sales are, online ebooks are great, but book sales are just as big. They never. Still people like to have a book, and young people as well. Obviously, older people are used to it, but I know my daughter prefers to read a book rather than read a Kindle.
That's good to hear. I really enjoy hearing that. Because seeing the fixation on electronic media, it is concerning in many ways for me. I want to shift a little bit here and talk about aircraft with you. You built your own aircraft. Could you talk about that with me? I love experimental aircraft. I helped one of my bosses build one of his aircraft, and it's quite a chore to build your own aircraft and get all the pieces and parts put together, laid out, and each each step has to be done in a very specific orientation, a specific way. Talk to us about the type of plane that you built, and why did you choose to build one instead of purchase a used aircraft?
Well, like I said, I think we've got a history of doing things the wrong way around sometimes, just to make things they need to be. But as I say, I've always liked creating things, and thought it'd be good fun. An airplane is the most, we're so used to travel now and by airliners. I think we sort of lose track of how incredible it actually is to be traveling 400 or 500 miles an hour through the air, 5 miles up.
That's right.
If you'd said to somebody 100 odd years ago about it, they wouldn't have believed you. And it still fascinates me, the fact that you can do that and that you can get into an airplane. So it was always a challenge to actually build something that would fly myself. So what actually is an American kit built by I can't remember the name of the company. It's called the Glass Goose. It's called Seahawker first of all, and then changed the name to Glass Goose. It's a fiberglass plane, fiberglass foam core. You've probably heard of Burt Rutan.
Yes.
Around the world. He's sort of pioneered this sort of build of using foam and fiberglass construction for airplanes, for home builds, which makes a very slippy, fast, aerodynamic airplane. The problem with ours was we bought the kit when they hadn't finished fully testing it. They put a bigger engine in it, which of course, when you change the design of something, of one thing, it has ramifications further on down the line. So you put a bigger engine in to make it go faster. And then it's heavier because the engine's bigger. So you have to make the wings bigger, you have to make the undercarriage bigger. And it turned out to be a bit of a nightmare. And ended up, we did get ours flying. We actually built it in the back of a pub in Belfast, which is good fun. Didn't have to go through too far from work. I could work for three, 4 hours on the plane and then go back into the pub for a couple of pints with my mates before I went home. There's a few people started flying them in the States and having accidents, which generally were factored back to the original design modifications hadn't been changed adequately to make the wings better, stronger, and heavier to cope with a bigger engine. So we parked up and decided to wait until all the wrinkles were taken out of it. And as far as I know, I'm still waiting. As I've got older, as you said, so even like the motorbikes, when you're in your 20s, you think you're indestructible, but you get a bit older, you get a bit.
That's right.
Turn it into a bit of salty. Think, hang on a minute, what was I thinking of getting up in that airplane? I did fly it, but it was scary enough knowing that it was a two biplane with a strutless biplane, which means the two wings one over the top of the other, but without struts in traditional way. And there was a guy in America, I can't remember where, I think it was Louisiana somewhere. One of the wings actually broke off, which you would think would be two wings on one side and one wing on the other side. You'd think that would be a end of story, but he actually was able to manage to land the airplane and they wouldn't walk away. So, but that was the end of this. Whenever that happened to him, we thought, well, we'll park up and wait till we get all this sorted out. So we're a bit annoyed because we put so much time and effort into building it and getting it, doing it the way we were supposed to do it, to find out that the prototype, that they hadn't finished testing it well enough. And
Yeah, that would hurt.
Yeah, but it was a great experience again. I know I wouldn't want to do it again, but I'm glad I did it at the time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's part of the learning process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you decide to build a plane, were you already flying a plane? Did you have your pilot's license?
No, we were, myself and my partner were doing, between us, we were both just learning how to fly, would you believe? So we hadn't actually got our license at that stage. But we did get our license, and we bought a Piper Tri-Pacer after that.
Nice.
Old 1958 Piper Tri-Pacer. We restored that, brought it back, recovered it, put a new engine in it, we left it like a new toy. So it's kind of sad to sell that. As I say, I left about 10, 15, 12 years ago. I left the UK to live in Dubai for a while, and I gave up flying at that stage. It's so scary sometimes. You sort of, I don't think I never actually gave up flying, but I just didn't go flying anymore because something else came along. We started doing sailing, and it's only when you think back, that was the last time I went flying was 10 years ago, and what happened to that? The history of that is spent so much time in airplanes and learning how to fly and doing courses and building them, and then you just wander off. You wonder when the last time you're going to do something is, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's really a quest for knowledge, isn't it?
Well, it is. Yeah. I mean, I think I like learning how to do things rather than doing them sometimes. So it's more fun to learn how to fly than it is actually flying. Whenever you get to be able to do it, it's the challenge of learning how to do it is the fun part of it.
That's right.
Yeah. And cycling, staying alive is always a challenge on a bike. So it's, you know, every day is a new challenge, you know.
Yeah. And you know, you actually get a feel of what life is really about, because when you're adventurous like that, you never know what's around the next corner, and that really drives the soul. So Chris, you're a fascinating guy. Do you have a call to action for our listeners today?
Well, probably, I suppose, for people like myself in the sort of 60s bracket, wondering what's going to happen next, is to say to people, don't worry about it, get off your ass and do whatever you want to do. Don't be believing that life's over, that you're on a downward spiral. Still a few years left. Hopefully, anyway, that we can still get out there and do what we want to do and have a bit of time and hopefully a bit of money to do it.
Yeah, I can't agree more. You know, sometimes when we get after 50, we start reflecting back and thinking, boy, that was fast. How much time do I have left? Don't think about that. Get out and do it. Enjoy the time that you have left, because you could live to be 110, you know, you just don't know. So I say do it, and you'll find out if you like it or not. If you don't like it, stop doing it. If you like it, well, explore a little more. See what it's about.
Just do it a bit slower, maybe, you know.
That's right.
When I was 21, I could ride a motorbike all day and party all night. Now I can ride a motorbike all day. I just have to go to bed with a cup of cocoa every night afterwards.
That's right. That's right. You slow down a little bit, but the mind tells you you want to do it, and that's the adventurous mind, and it will keep us alive and keep us thinking and going. And you know, the more important thing is you're out here sharing your story and connecting with people and letting people know it's okay. Just do it. I love that, Chris, and I respect that a lot. How can people reach out to you, find you, and get in touch with you?
On my website's chrisdonaldson.world, which has most of my details on it about the book. The book's on Amazon. Probably the best place to buy it is Amazon because it's around the world. Company we love and we hate at the same time. We can't do without them. We can't do with them. But it's an ebook, it's an audio book, it's in paperback, and it's a kind of great reaction from young and old. And it's not just a motorbike book. It's an adventure story. It's a coming of age story. It's a reflections and past life. It's a bit for everything. Hopefully, a bit for everything and everybody in it.
That I can't say thank you enough for what you're doing out there, Chris. But most of all, thank you for being here today with us and sharing your story and being part of the Dead America podcast.
Been a pleasure, Ed.